thank you for joining us, our Connections California event. And today is about college success, technology tools and strategies for students. And so my name is Diana Mart. I'm a resource specialist, and I also have a specialty in assistive technologies. And I further specialize in individuals who have learning disabilities. So this is my wheelhouse and what I love to talk about and share information about. So I'm super excited about that tonight. My co-host with me tonight is Mary Diane. She's going to introduce herself.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here and joining us in our webinar. My name is Mary Diane, and I'm one of the education resource specialists here at Parents Helping Parents. I also care for a family member who has special needs. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary Diane. And so, like Mary Diane, a lot of us here have the journey and the experience of being a parent of a child with a disability or multiple children with disabilities. So we're able to speak to that that to families on that level. So if you ever have reached out to Parents Helping Parents and tapped into our services, whether it's through emails, one-on-one phone calls, and other events that we've hosted, then you'll know that we really try to empathize and listen well and understand your situation, and then hopefully share with you resources and information and options that might help you help your child to have greater success in the journey that you're on. So thank you again for joining us here at Parents Helping Parents. This webinar is going to be mostly designed for and relevant for students who are taking regular high school or college coursework and trying to move through that journey as a student fairly independently, or on that path towards independent student learning. So keep that in mind. So it could be neurodiverse, dyslexia, dysgraphia, working memory concerns, difficulty with note taking for a variety of reasons, study strategies, and things like that. So we'll be sharing with you a whole array of different types of resources. Okay. And then I should also add, I'm going to plug it early, that we do have an AT open house, and it is offered March 12th. So take a look at our PHP calendar. It's an opportunity for you to come into our PHP office and explore in our iTech Center, kind of several stations. So there'll be a dozen or so stations with 2 or 3 tools set up at each station, and you can independently explore each one of these tools and get some hands-on experience. So take a look at our PHP calendar for our AT open house on March 12th, and it's from 12 to 3. All right. So today's college success discussion, we're going to go over kind of just the big picture of what to expect that might be different in the college environment than the high school, and highlight some of the important aspects to really be thinking deeply on, and then move into the discussion of tools. Okay, so let's start here. Like in the high school environment, whether you're, a senior or you're still in the throes of moving through the 4 years of high school, you might know that the learning is by and large done in class, led by the instructor. The parent involvement is quite open and encouraged at different levels on the student's journey towards independence as a student as well. But the parent can be involved because the child student is still a minor at that point until the age of majority. And at that point, the student retains their educational rights. So long as they are in California and under the age of 18, the parent has educational rights and can have access to the child's records and lead meetings and discuss everything about the child pretty openly and have access to records and stuff. Okay, the structure of each day is pretty set. Bell rings, you go to the next class. You have schedules that are printed. Counselors, they assign all the coursework, and that's all pretty much set from the first day of school, unless there's small changes, but it's fairly structured in the high school. The teachers, they monitor, they support, they check for understanding, they circulate around, they're in the room. Sometimes there's group work, classwork, and they circulate. They're there for the students. And then there's homework assigned and it's checked on regularly. There might be review of the homework and things like that. So, that's pretty structured. When you compare something like that to the college learning environment, then we see that it's there's a lot more space between the instructor and this child and their learning, or the student and their learning. And so it's more lecture format, and it's also more self-driven by the student. The student's expected to be able to self-advocate for themselves, identify when they are not understanding, raise their hand, go see office hours. So there's a lot of independence and self-advocacy there. They have to manage themselves, get themselves to class, make sure that they're attending. If the child's sleeping in class, the instructor is not going to bother waking them up. They'll just let them sleep through, because it's the student's job to be capable to attend the class and self-monitor, right? And they manage their own study schedule. The student will need to be able to, like I said earlier, seek out the supports that they need, whether it's a tutoring center, the library. Ask the librarian, how do I find these resources? If they need special support on how to read technical writing and research papers, there are classes and supports and peer mentors and things like that that can support a child, and they have to go find them and seek them out and make time in their schedule and attend them. So that's a lot to expect out of an individual. Also, the professor, they lead the discussion, and whoever picks it up and understands, then they understand. If you don't understand, you can ask your questions if they're taking questions during class time, or you go try to find their office hours. Maybe it's a TA, maybe it's the professor, maybe sometimes they're not there, so but it's professor led. The dynamics are very different. The course syllabus is given at the beginning of the year. The students are expected to process it, chunk it up, schedule it out in their calendars, plan out the year. They know when the midterms are. They know when the big projects are due. It's all written there in the syllabus. And then the child needs, or the student needs to, have an understanding of how to show up and prepare for all of these things. The content is greater in depth and breadth and the pace. And so the students got to have the skill set or other tools to lean on to make sure that they're able to keep up with that. And then the academics. So, the academics in high school, there is support built into the classroom environment with the planning, organizing, self-regulation. The teacher will prompt the student, study skills. The teacher again will make suggestions about this or that, about study skills and how to get help, and then approach students to see if they need support, here and there. And then identify when you need help and seek help. Monitor information outlets, email, forums, right? So these are life skills that are necessary. Oh, and so comparing it to the college environment, right? It's all at a much higher level. So the planning, organizing, kind of the examples I said earlier, right? With the syllabus and self-regulation, study skills, all of these are elevated and expected to be done independently by the student when they enter the college environment. And so functional life skills. So what are those? A college student definitely needs these. They need to be resourceful. They need to identify that there's a problem before it's too far along. And then they need to solve the problem. They need to take proactive steps to solving it. They need to have soft skills. They need to know how to approach people politely and show appreciation, all those soft skills. And they need to be able to manage their finances. They need to be able to manage their own self-care. Okay.
Okay,
All
so
right.
so
Go
now
ahead.
there's some levels of support. So this slide shows some of the differences between high school support and college support. If a child graduated from high school with a regular high school diploma, the IEP ends. In college, the student may receive reasonable accommodations which the College Office of Disability Services um, in the point of as the point of contact to disclose the disability and explore accommodations options. There are no IEPs in college. So then next slide. Um, And there are generally three levels of support that can be found at various colleges. The requirements for college accommodations is based on guidance from ADA and Section 504 requirements to provide access. There's moderate level and high level, as you can see on this slide. And there's more information on the next slide, the disclosure of disability. Every college provides disability services. The office that coordinates disability services may be called by many names. The Office of Disability Services specifically coordinates the intake of students with disabilities who are seeking appropriate services and accommodations and maintain the paperwork documenting the support services. Each college may have their own intake process and have different requirements for the proof of disability. The student will need to practice their self-advocacy skills to initiate the intake process and participate in the discussion of appropriate accommodations to address their functional needs for access at the college. The disability specialist at the Disability Services Office may also provide individual support, instruction and learning strategies, help with time management and organizational skills, assistance with course selection, referral to campus resources, or additional counseling services. And the common accommodations and services at college are listed here on this slide. There is note takers in class, recorded or electronic textbooks, access to assistive technology such as speech recognition software and scanners, screen readers, exam support, scanned extended time, readers, scribes. And now let's take a close look at how AT is defined. So assistive technology is defined, it has a device. A device is any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of a child with a disability. The term does not include a medical device that is surgically implanted or the replacement of that device. There's also the service side of assistive technology, which is any service that directly assists an individual with a disability in the selection, acquisition, or use of an assistive technology device. And let's go deeper onto the AT service. The AT service is further clarified to encompass these aspects of supporting the AT, evaluation of the needs, including a functional evaluation in their customary environment, acquisition of AT, selecting, designing, fitting, customizing, adapting, applying, maintaining, repairing, replacing, coordinating therapies, interventions, or services with ATUs, training or selective technical support for students, professionals, employers. And assistive technology is basically like what is shown in this slide. It is any object, device, or tool used to make life easier. AT solutions are described by their place on a continuum consisting of no tech, low tech, mid tech, and high tech devices. And we have some examples on the slide. A device's place on the continuum relates to its technological sophistication and complexity, as well as the level of technical training needed to use the device. You might also see a correlation with costs associated with the continuum. AT from any part of the continuum can be considered in any order in the AT consideration process. Yeah. So, what is assistive technology? For students with learning disabilities, AT commonly supports these areas. Here are the academic domains: reading, writing, math, note taking, vision, attention and focus, organization, and planning. And here are, on the next slide, are some examples of disabilities that may impact functional areas listed on the previous slide. This includes learning disabilities as well as other disabilities, such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, working memory issue, executive dysfunction, processing disorder, ADD or ADHD, autism. And similarities of cognitive ability, academic performance, and behavioral performance equals similar intervention and compensatory remedies, including AT options. And so now Diana will be talking about AT for learning disabilities. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Diane. Yeah, we're going to start moving into the different tools and starting with the different reading tools. But this slide is going to kind of show us by different categories of academic domains what types of different tool types might be able to help the student address that area of academic need. So this is a very kind of a important slide for you to go back to after this training to kind of reframe everything that you heard about all these different tools and think about like what type of reading support was that. Oh, that was a text to speech, digital text, or go through this to help organize your concept map of all these different tools. So here under reading, we have eye gaze support. So that is like how the eye is moving across the screen. Is it able to go, with um, accuracy from word to word and line to line and correctly decode at a pace that they need to kind of move along. So that eye gaze support, it could be contrast colorations. We're going to go into some of that later. But that's what I mean by eye gaze. It's not for visual impairment, but rather it's for supporting the eye tracking and information gain, information processing through the eyes. The visual changes kind of on that same effect. You can change things visually so that it's more readable. Text to speech, that's the text print to voice generation option. Digital text, sometimes referred to as e-text, so getting the text in a digitized format. Vocabulary simplification, as well as a summarizing tool. So all of these types of assistive technologies can support reading. Now for writing, we have speech to text, STT, word prediction, spelling support, grammar support, as well as note-taking support. And then math, math is listed separately, but it's kind of the same. There are some very specific math tools for those who have visual processing or dyslexia, dysgraphia, that are unique because of the mathematical notation requirements. It requires different programs to be able to support the reading and writing and then produce it in the mathematical formula. And so again, with all these different types of, different tools, you want to always consider the strategies. Like Mary Diane mentioned, that AT is not just referring to the item, the thing itself, but also the strategies that are paired with it. And then on top of that, with strategy, it's inclusive of training and support being provided to the user. right? And that's more specific to individuals who are on um, a supported plan. And so these are requirements under IDEA. So if the child is still in high school and on an IEP or on a 504, then the AT paired with strategy and training must be documented. And so if you need support with that, definitely email us at parentshelpingparents, info@php.com, and we can provide you with information and some guidance on that, on best practices. So we're here for you in that regard as well. But once a child graduates high school with the regular high school diploma, then the IEP ends. And then they are, because their special ed program did not continue because of that regular high school diploma um, moment, then they are on their own for their higher education. But they still have their rights under 504. So they still have the right to have equal access to their learnings, where their disability is not a barrier to them accessing their learning. And so that is the premise from which most of the disability services offices at colleges are providing those types of services. Um, and so sometimes at that point, families will ask, well, my child is going to a private school. What about that? Do they have to provide it? Well, now in the post-COVID time period, just about every business, every college, every university, public and private, receives some federal dollars, whether it, however it came to them. They receive some relief money. And if they took that relief money, they're required to implement Section 504 and ensure that all students at their campus have equal access to their education, okay, to the same degree as their non-disabled peers. All right. Okay, let's start looking at these specific tools now. So we have AT for reading. At the high level, there are fewer and fewer low-tech supports, but these are some that are tried and true. It supports the eye tracking, focus, concentration. It can, because it eases the eye to kind of spot the right place, and then brain isn't searching as much, then it can also decrease that cognitive load that the student might be feeling as they're working through the decoding process in their reading. And so all these are different types of low tech things that could be used. So here we have a masking thing. It essentially blocks some of the space around the word so that the child or student's eye can focus on the one section for tracking. Highlighting, especially if there's a system, a strategy paired with the usage of the highlighters, then the student will be able to use that effectively to help find information and move their eyes across the stuff they need to read. Right. Sometimes color contrast can support the user, and that's something you just need to kind of experiment with a little bit with. And with digitized media, it's easy to change background colors and change font colors. But if you're reading a book, a physical book, then you might need to rely on physical, colored bar or any sort of colorized material. You can even find this colorized tape. It's like highlighting tape. This is highlighting tape, but it's removable. So it sticks on kind of like a Post-it note. It's that level of soft adhesive that you can stick it down and pull it up without damaging the pages. So you can take a look at highlighting the books that way. It's a great way to get some kinesthetic learning in with the identifying important parts of the literature. And so, we find that a lot of people, adults, students, young people alike, they really like to have the physical books still. So these might be some options for them. And making the font bigger. Maybe it's not possible to get a big print book. You can make requests to the colleges for big print material and large print material if that's what the student needs to have access. But if having a magnifier is a reasonable support, then you can try that as well. All right. And so some visual changes to play around with, and we'll just cruise through some of these, play with the color because sometimes that affects the ability for the eye to accurately see and comfortably track. The contrast of the material on the left here is harder to read than the one on the right. So imagine if you're already having difficulty and you don't have an ideal contrast on your reading material, then it just is going to add additional, cognitive load on the brain, on the reader. Fonts, same principle, right? The more readable, eye-friendly the font is, then the easier it is for the person to decode correctly. And then just a print size and word spacing. So there are different tools that can help you do this as well as the built-in settings. So take a look at the settings first because sometimes those are the easiest to do because they're all right there. And then just try adjusting that first. And so every year more and more, there are other built-in accessibility things. And so we have this example of the iOS text-to-speech. It's built into devices. So this is an example of the iOS one. And so you can just turn it on in your accessibility if you're looking at your item through your phone or tablet. This is the type of bar you might see. And then if you're on a different type of device and go through your settings, this is, I think, the Chrome version or Chromebook version. So you would turn on screen reader support and then click OK. Just go ahead and explore those settings under accessibility. And then now they also have the camera is able to extract text. So this has been fantastic. It's been a game changer for a lot of people who are, on the streets or trying to read a menu, and then, they can just have it at their fingertips and it right through the camera device. It has an algorithm that identifies when there's text on the screen. And if you touch this image, it will highlight all the text. If you long press this, it will give you some other menu options. So check that out. More built-in tools for accessibility. Microsoft has really been a game changer since the last 8 years or so when they implemented this concept of making all of these accessibility tools universally available through their different software tools. So you can look for their immersive reader, and it's built into Word. It's built into a lot of their Office ecosystem. So you can take a look for specifically for their immersive reader. You can go to the Microsoft website and search immersive reader, and then it has a lot of these great tutorials there that you can see how do I use this and where do I find it in your software. So for those of you who are Microsoft fans, it's a fantastic tool. And you notice it has one more thing that we hadn't mentioned earlier, which is the syllabification. You see these little dots between the words, it toggles it on. And then imagine the support that provides in helping the reader to chunk up the parts of a word, so long as they can decode those smaller sections that's been chunked up. And then they could hopefully feel a little bit more support when they're trying to read aloud in class or even read aloud to themselves. It's just a different way of seeing the print material. And a lot of these built-in read aloud functions have highlighting or dual highlighting. So when you look at the different text-to-speech options, take a look at whether the user is benefiting from single highlighting, and is that good enough? Or do they really need something more supportive, which might be the dual highlighting? So the background might highlight, the big background stays the same, but then the line by line, sentence by sentence has its own highlight. But as the text is being read aloud, the word being read aloud, is being highlighted and moving along as it's being read. Okay. All right, so we mentioned, so there's a lot of built-in stuff, but sometimes built-in stuff doesn't have as many bells or whistles, or maybe you're looking for a tool that does kind of that, but a little bit better. Maybe it's a little smoother. Maybe that particular built-in tool is not as comprehensive or smooth as you are hoping it would be. So you can take a look at some other options. Like this is from Don Johnston. It's called Snap and Read. And this is just their own little GIF of their toolbar here and then what you might click to get the read aloud going. And so it's browser based. So this is showing you the browser, and then you click the play button and it will read aloud. You can choose the different voices. You can actually even choose different accents of voices, things like that. It has a select to speak. So it also has optical character recognition in it. So it can read extracted letters, words from an image, and then read that aloud. This symbol here is simplification. So it can simplify some complex words. And then the last one, I mean, it's not the last one, there's actually more symbols below, but yeah, it also has a, you know, a way to kind of extract text and put it into a sidebar. So you can, as you're reading, you're actively interacting with the text and extracting information, and it's getting citations of where it was sourced from. And so all of these are different, similar but different versions of that. So they're all very high caliber, respectable options, businesses. These are all ones that have been vetted to have healthy, student individual data practices. So there aren't any data mining going on that is kind of suspicious. So take a look at these. And if you go into the Chrome Web Store, all of these should be able to be found through whatever browser or web store that you're using. So if you use Edge, you would go to the Edge Web Store. If you're on Safari, you would go into the Apple App Store. If you're on a Chromebook or using the Chrome browser, you go to the Chrome Web Store and then you search any of these titles and you'll be able to pull it up and download it. A lot of them have free trials for a couple of weeks at a time. And then, so I would suggest trying out one at a time to see if you like it. There are also really good tutorials online that you can take a look at to see if how they work and the feedback that people have of them. So maybe before you start your trial, you might want to just take a quick peek at YouTube and see what are these, bloggers saying about all of these, and they'll take you through a little walkthrough. And also these companies themselves, they produce their own marketing material there. And so you can go to their YouTube channel and see tutorials that they've created about them. But they'll say, they'll show you very well how their app works, but the pros and cons won't be described. Okay, so let's take a look at where, like, now that you can look at built-in things or third-party apps and extensions to read digitized text, whether it's through the browser or through other media. Where can you find, like, let's say, like, this sounds great, but I'm going to college, I'm going to be buying a textbook and I'm going to have a digital textbook or wherever, and is that going to work, right? Where else can I find digitized text? So let's talk about that. If you have a eligible disability, a visual disability, it could be because of dyslexia, it could be visual processing, it could be some visual impairment of varying degrees. So long as you can have somebody attest and document, whether it's your doctor or therapist or otherwise, just take a look at each one of these two groups They both provide the same similar service of digitized text that can be read aloud. It's available in the proper format, which is called EPUB, that all of these that can be read easily by all these third-party extensions and apps. Bookshare, some of the stuff has changed a little bit. So what used to be completely free for anybody who is eligible, now it's only free for qualified US students, and you need to read it on their website because it's a little complicated. Otherwise, if you're also eligible but not a US student, then you pay a fee, right? Learning Ally also has a fee. They often have sales, so it can be down towards $99 or so. And so just take a look. You can subscribe to their newsletters and get their sale prices, things like that. But the main difference between the two is Bookshare. You can download their different formats of books, and you can essentially either read it through their built-in browser, or you can use any third-party app to read it because you actually download it. With Learning Ally, if you're on the computer or on a tablet, you're using the Learning Ally portal, and then it is going to you only use their browser, reader. So and their books are actually human narrated, as opposed to Bookshare uses, whatever group you're using, a third party extension or their own, it's a digitized voice, right? So Learning Ally does hire volunteers to come and read their books. And so that's not read like a professional book, like if you subscribe to Audible, those are professional readers, right? The ones reading for Learning Ally and creating that human voice narration are just volunteers. So the quality of that can be, hit and miss sometimes, depending on the person's reader sensitivity to that. Okay, so just taking a look at how the form factors might appear in their native readers. So this is Bookshare's new native reader. So it has kind of the play and pause button here. You can see it's highlighting the sentence as it goes. You can add bookmarks. This is more of a, find your place in the book. You can take a look at all of your bookmarks that you've collected and hop around between them. But it's a pretty decent text-to-speech reader. And so it's been vastly improved. So if you last tried it more than 6 months ago, then it might be a totally different tool now. But some people are very comfortable just downloading the books and using their free extension or whatever other app and reading their books through those things. So it's up to you how you want to use it, but this is their native reader. And in Learning Ally, this is theirs. So theirs has a little bit more functionality. It does have the ability to create notes that are tagged with the different pages, and you could kind of hop forward, hop back. This is a little pop-up menu for adjusting the rate of speed, faster, slower. And in both of them, you can make the fonts bigger, smaller, the spacing between lines. You can adjust all of those, the different background colors, font colors, all of that is highly adjustable on both extensions or both e-text sources. But again, this one has additional functionality of not only does you bookmark things, but you can also add notations. And then later on, you can take a look at all of your notes together, and then you can extract it to, whatever word processing document that you want to interact with them with. Okay. And then, so if you don't have that eligible disability that Bookshare and Learning Ally require you to have, there are plenty of other places you can get digitized text. And so here is kind of a pretty comprehensive list of kind of the big providers out there. There might be, another handful of them out there, but these are by and large, all the for fee ones are at the top, and then the free ones, remember, this material is copyrighted and everybody needs to make a fair um, wage. So, only the public domains are really available through a lot of these free portals. Um, and sometimes some of these other, like digital public library, like if you live in New York, you can have access to more books and different things like that. But essentially, this is mostly public domain books. All right, so let's take a look at the reading support that's called summarizing or simplifying, right? So if I am already having a lot of difficulty with the decoding process for a variety of reasons, right? Maybe it's a visual processing, maybe it's dyslexia, um, or something similar to those things, or maybe it's both together, right? Then I'm spending a lot of energy trying to concentrate and focus on on so many more nuances of the decoding process and put so much more effort into that I get exhausted after reading for a couple hours. I'm just completely spent, right? So what's considered a reasonable accommodation for some people who might feel like, the words are just slowing me down because it's too technical. Can I swap out the complex words so I can more easily gain the core concepts into the brain and just get them in? Um, then that might be a reason to use a summarizing or simplifying tool. And so I have some of these listed down here at the bottom: Rewordify, Quillbot, Summarizing Tool, Text Compactor, Scholar, see. Um, right. Obviously, I'm leaving some out, and not for a particular agenda or reason, but because it's evolving so fast. The world of AI, right? Um, the language model AI support. I mean, actually, Quillbot has it pulled in. A lot of the existing tools are pulling them in to themselves, and so the landscape of all of these tools is evolving so fast. And so you can just take a quick look at these websites and see it, or you can go to one of these, you know, um, generative AI sites and have a conversation and say, hey, can you help me simplify this? You know, and then there are some best practices, and I encourage people to follow them and use these AI supports honorably and the way they're intended to. Right? But AI can definitely be a great support for individuals with learning disabilities. So, Chat GPT, or if you're using Bard or anything else, um, there are really powerful ways of using those. So you pop the text in there, if it's an excerpt, you can pop that in there and say, help me summarize it. So can you reword this so that it's at a fifth grade level? Something like that. All right, and then here's something you can actually, like a very, very lower tech way of managing it, is you can copy a section of the information, you paste it right into this text field, and then you have it simplify it for you. Use fewer words. You can specify how short, how long. This actually only has 3 settings: short, medium, long. Um, but yeah, so these are just examples of different tools you can explore for the summarizing purpose, or just think about what summarizing actually mean, and is it a tool that is a reasonable accommodation for my child? Um, and I did see the question earlier. Somebody was asking what's the difference, or what is a modification? Because earlier I said accommodation. So sometimes people confuse modification with accommodations. And so accommodations, simple things you can change in the learning environment: how things are taught, how things are said, how things are presented, where the child is seated, things like that, larger print material. those are accommodations. Maybe having things repeated, everybody else is getting it, it's said to them, but this child will get things in print as well. Those are accommodations. The child will still do all the same work with their accommodations in place, and turn in the homework, do all the same exact tests as their peers. And so it's not changing the workload. But if the child is receiving modifications, then that means the work is modified. The workload has changed. So maybe instead of writing a 5-page essay, then they are writing a 2-page essay with a visual diagram with, these 10 elements included, right? And so the work that the student is producing is significantly different. It's different than what the other students are doing. So that's a modification. And in colleges do not modify, but you do have the option of doing pass fail. You can take the class for as long as you can hang in there and then withdraw at whatever cutoff point. And I think some places still allow audit, but they don't really allow you to modify, right? Okay. Oops. All right, let me go back to that. All right, so this is just some more examples of the ones I had listed there. This is Scholarcy, and it's kind of redone its interface, and it's working smoothly and looks a little nicer. So I checked it out, and so I thought it was reasonable to add there, just add a little visual for you because I thought it was a pretty powerful tool. Okay. So now moving on to kind of that support piece, right? Not really support, but also like you have to pair strategies with being an effective learner, right? So if a student is just given the AT tool itself and not told like how to pair it with some healthy practices to make their learning effective, then the tool will only be partially or maybe unsuccessful. And so helping the student understand that there are ways you could enhance your learning. And this is one of the options, active reading. And so one way of active reading is adding the notation. So this is handwriting the notation. So, here the person has written into the margin of the book, they added some color to give it some other contextual hints to that this individual can instantly grab onto. This could also be represented in a digitized version, and Cami is a very powerful tool. It can do a lot of different things. It has text to speech built into it, but it can create graphic notations. So you can create a compare contrast with these little bubbles or a Venn diagram with some shapes and then title it and then organize your thinking that way. And so if the student knows they have to write a compare contrast essay, then maybe they start by creating some sort of graphical notation, or they start pulling out, knowing what their goal is in mind, keeping that in mind. They already start noting on the margins of their worksheet, or if this is a book, they might even put post-it notes instead of writing into the book, right? So they could do that too. Post-it notes are nice because then you can pull them out of the book and then organize them on the side, maybe on chart paper. If they're very tactile, if they're kinesthetic in their learning styles, this could add some movement breaks and things like that. Add some color, maybe different color. Post-it notes can add some color-based organization strategies. It might additionally tap into other parts of their memory banks when there's color added. So it makes it more multi-sensory as well that way. So as many ways as we can engage different parts of the learner's brain, that's been shown to be beneficial for the learner. Okay, so adopting an active reading strategy and annotation strategies, and then choose what medium. It could be paper version, again, as I said, in the margins or post-its, or a digital format. All right, so those are most of the reading items that we're going to go over today. And again, if you're interested in exploring a handful of them, I'm going to have many stations set up, and you'll just kind of rotate through these different stations. It's very self-guided at our AT open house, so please come to that and explore them. Okay, let's move on to writing. Okay, so writing is very closely paired with the reading, right? Because like I said, when you're reading, you want that active strategy of writing, right? Keeping the brain engaged while you're reading, keeping the brain engaged while you're reading, and then organizing at the same time. And so these are more ways of visualizing the material. And so here are some other options. Earlier I mentioned Cami was one. Here are some other ones that are very specific mind mapping options. So you can take a look at these, and there's so many out there, right? And then if you want something that has an AI embedded in there, a lot of these are changing to adopt the AI, like I mentioned before. So you can take a look there and see if they have that built in, or you just keep the AI chat GPT open up on the side and say like, hey, you know, where else can I find blah, 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 right? And so even if it doesn't have it embedded, maybe that's better. Maybe you want the user to have a more simple, straightforward interface here. And I can tell you most students who have learning disabilities, they like things to look less complex, more clean. So but different colors, different arrays, different toolbars, different menu bars. Each person will feel like this one's the better fit for me, or that one is the better fit. The other one is way too confusing. So, it's really important to be able to explore this. And then I think if you're planning on going to college in the fall, this is a great time to start exploring different AT tools, just one at a time in a very relaxed pace, and then just see what's working. And you get kind of some experience under your belt. So when things start to ramp up later in the college, university environment, you're set with your learning tools. So this is really good timing for those of you who are here. All right. Let's see. So this is just another zoom in on one of the mind maps. So I think this one is the MindMeister. You see how it can represent it very differently. Almost all of them allow you to toggle between the outline format, and then you click a button, and then it'll turn into a mind map. Whatever mind map formation, maybe you want it to fan out to both sides, or maybe you want it like in all different arrays, like a solar array. So there's different options will have different layouts for you. Okay. So AT for writing can also include the speech to text. So some people confuse the text to speech and speech to text. And so, I'm trying to make sure that I'm saying it very clearly with emphasis here. This is speech to text. So like dictation. So obviously it's built into a lot of our devices. We can dictate our text, we can dictate our emails now. We just touch the little microphone icon, and the mic is live and we dictate, right? But we all know that those are imperfect. Sometimes it makes mistakes. Sometimes it adds different punctuation or commas, things like that. And then you can just play around with it, and then play around very importantly with the speed with which you dictate, and then also encourage your student user who's trying to try it out, maybe for the first time, to get used to dictating with specific enunciation, right? So they need to be able to not slur their words together and say their words distinctly, period. And then, a lot of the algorithms now will add the punctuation, but I find it's kind of hit and miss. So I still like to add the punctuation, because then I know the period is where I wanted it. I know the quotes are where I wanted it, that, you know, The parentheses is here and there, So it's getting better and better with all these voice prompts of adding those punctuations, but you can still just say them. All right, so here's one example of it built into the Google Doc, and it's very easy to use. You essentially just kind of go up in the menu, and then I think it's one of the tools. You click under tools, and then you can say, turn on I can't remember what they call it, the dictation. It's not dictation, but they use voice typing. Yeah, it's voice typing. And it works really well. So I find that the speed of it keeps up with my voice, even if I speak at a medium rate. It's pretty accurate. So pretty impressive algorithm, right? And here it is. You can also use a keyboard shortcuts. I'm a huge fan of teaching people keyboard shortcuts because instead of doing all these, 5 clicks to get something to turn on, you just hold down these 3 keys and it's on. Oh, I see a question there. The voice writing software is free. The built-in ones are all free. And I think there are some that I'm going to get to here that are, free to try or free trials. And then they might say, in-app purchases later, if you want to turn on more functionality. So maybe they'll have embedded tools in addition to the dictation. So the dictation itself might be free, but if you want any special grammar correction or spelling correction or, things like that, then you have to pay a little something. So each one is different, so I would just check, but a lot of them are free. And so I would try the built-in ones first because they're already there. You didn't have to download anything. They're easy to turn on and off, and just give those a try. So all right, and this one is called Co-Writer, and Co-Writer is been around a long time. It's also a Don Johnston product, a very reliable company started by somebody who has dyslexia himself. And this tool can allow a drop-down box, and then it's like a choice box. And then if the student, as they're typing, even if they're spelling a word with inventive, creative spelling and a different way every time, this algorithm of word selection is very, very smart. And on top of that, if you're doing more specific writing, then you can even pull in a topic specific dictionary to support your writing. So if you knew you're writing about sea lions, then you could add the sea lion dictionary and it would source different sea lion specific words to your writing choice box. So that's pretty nice. And so here it has a dictation option, right? So you can click this and then just switch into dictation mode. So sometimes people feel these choice boxes are pretty slow because I type a little and I got to read a little and I select one. I type a little, read a little, select one, right? And so that can be slow and it requires a certain level of patience. So if somebody really wants to move through their writing faster, and they're able to adapt to kind of coming up with the information on the fly in their head, right? That's another skill. And being able to verbalize it, pushing the words out of their mouth can be yet another challenge, right? Can have a lot of thoughts in your head, but not able to get them out in a reasonable way that works with this type of support tool. So these are all things to consider when choosing tools is what are the strengths of the user and what are their weaknesses, right? What's a no-go for them? Okay, so this is an example of how he's typing the word write, like to write something, but he started with RI and then still came up with the word choice of write. So that's an example of the flexible spelling word processing that it has built into the tool. Okay. All right. And then there are a lot of word prediction, smart word prediction coming out now. It's changing really fast, right? And even before the AI boom last year, at the end of last year, this has been evolving very quickly. So there's a lot out there, to be honest. And obviously it's built in. The ones built in are kind of hit miss, right? Grammarly, is the one, I feel like it works very consistently. I don't hear people having problems with that one. Ginger's also been around a long time, reputable company. Um, all of these are also have been around for a reasonable amount of time. Coolbot, I like them, but I think for a high level user, their interface is a little high level. Um, but I think Grammarly, I really like the simplicity of the tool and its accuracy is pretty good as well. But check out the ones that appeal to your student. All right, so other aspects of writing in college, a very important one is note taking, being able to jot down notes in a reasonable way that works for the individual. So maybe writing on the fly and listening at the same time is not feasible, right? That simultaneous, they say multitasking is impossible. What their brains actually do is rapid cycling between listen, write, listen, process, listen, write, listen, process, right? So you're actually not doing two things at the same time. You're cycling very rapidly between two tasks. So if that person's not able to do that, a college center might assign a peer note taker as an option or ask you if would you rather have a peer note taker in class. We would have to seek out this person and then pay them per set of notes. Or would you like to have access to an app such as Note Taking Express? Some people use Glean. I see Glean being used more and more often, being listed very openly on their websites, but these are being used as well. So if you have very specific questions to the high school approval process of AT, I think we can talk about that later because I see a question down here in the chat about note-taking, audio recording options, and there's a whole strategy to that, which, essentially, if you're having difficulty getting that discussion, if you want more details of why is it challenging in the high school environment to get this AT, but in college, it's just like, you're eligible. Do you want it? Here it is, right? It's very different systems. And so I prefer, I think, Ritvik, maybe you can ping me offline, and then we can chat about that. Okay. And if anybody emails info@php.com with their questions, it will come to me. Anything assistive technology related will first come to me. And so, info@php.com, ping me about these types of questions. Thank you, Mary Diane. All right. All right, so here's a high-tech option for audio recording. So it's different than Glean. Glean, well, we'll talk about LiveScribe first. So it's a recording pen, and I will have this one at the AT Open House. And so as you're using this, you turn on this pen as ability to record and save a recording close in. The mic is right here, so you would need to be close to the speaker. And then it has a record, pause, and play button on the specialized paper. So this, you have to buy the specialized paper. It has micro dots, and at the tip of the pen, there is a infrared light that kind of knows exactly where on the page you're touching the pen tip too. And so it will be able to add the notation of where was the pen tip touching when you were during the recording. And so at any point when you press play on this paper and then touch part of your handwriting, it will play back from that moment in time, the recording. Okay. And if you buy one of their special pens that is able to sync to the iPad, it's able to convert the handwriting into print. So you can press the little icon and it can toggle between your handwritten style to the print style. And so that AT Open House is March 12th from 12 to 3, like our PHP calendar. Okay. And so Glean is here. And it's a pretty sophisticated tool, but essentially if you have the accommodation to receive the PDF in advance, then you could upload that PDF into Glean and it would appear here on the left. This mid column is your own personal kind of note-taking section. And on the right is a visual representation of the recording and the time of recording. So when there was a moment of speaking, it's a thicker line. When there was a pause, there was a thinner line, etc. And then what you do is on your input bar, here you can tag different types of notation. You can add a picture. Let's say you're on an iPad and you pull up your iPad and do a quick screenshot of something, or maybe you do a screenshot on itself. And then you can embed it in and it'll be tagged to that moment during the recording. So you can go back in time. You can, let's say the teacher, as it's recording, the teacher says, you need to study this. This is on your test. It was like, oh, I better mark my exclamation mark. I'll click this button here. And so there it shows up on your recording. So that means like everywhere you had an exclamation point, that means that was something very important I have to go back to. And maybe there was a moment that you spaced out or something. So you might assign a certain emoji, like a scratching head or, whatever, like you missed something or you were confused. So you might tag that moment in the recording with that. Maybe you wanted to add some notes. The notes would also be tagged with that moment in the recording. Okay. All right, so that's a quickie overview with Glean. And then other note-taking options, there are many. Some people will ask me like, well, I am really interested in the handwriting transfer. So my child is on an iPad, but they need their handwriting to get, converted to print, some sort of typed looking font. And so Nebo has that built in. And all of these are kind of evolving. And so we'll see who else kind of pulls that in. But right now it's just Nebo and then the LiveScribe pen are kind of the standouts. And the other ones still need to come along with that. But as far as audio recording for these, all three of these three, GoodNotes, Notability, and OneNote, which is Microsoft ecosystem, these three all can audio record, and then you can tag it differently. It's not the same as Glean. You don't have the ability to timestamp the recording the same, but essentially you're making a recording, you're embedding it in a certain part of your note. So it's like a voice note that got recorded and put into your note. And so it has that icon in your notes now that there's a voice recording put there that the student put there. Okay. And then for note taking, I put the, ChatGPT here. This is something that you could, if you had some transcription of it, you could take sections of it and put it into some AI tool. And you say, can you extract the main points and put into bullet notes, right? And then so it can do stuff like that for you. So consider different ways of using all of these AI tools out there. All right, and then so we talked about pairing strategies and routines with the tool itself. So I just kind of wrote some best practices that are just really commonplace out there in student success strategies. I comb the internet for all kinds of these things. I have a teacher education background. And I work with a lot of different students in the past, and so it's a very personal space for me to kind of come and study these things. So, I've collected just a handful to kind of start with as far as like, if you're going to take away seven key strategies, these are a good seven to start off with implementing like more active learning strategies, annotations, whatever it is, right? Okay, and accessories with note taking. So earlier I mentioned if you're on a tablet, then the digitized pen on the tablet can feel very uncomfortable. And that's one of the main reasons people say they don't want to take notes on their iPad is like it feels weird. It doesn't feel like a pencil on paper. I like that feeling. So rather than just tossing out the iPad option, you can make it feel like you're writing on paper. And so you get this paper-like screen protector, and it feels a little bit like sandpaper. And so these smart pencils, some of them have replaceable nibs because they know you're using these paper-like screen protectors that will slowly wear them down and make them, it's like a dull pencil eventually. You want to have a sharp pencil eventually, so you'll replace that nib. Uh, so having the screen protector, paper-like screen protector, and a digital pencil can be really useful. Um, Various grips. So maybe that pencil is a little heavier because it's a rechargeable pencil and doesn't feel comfortable. So try some different grips to maybe tuck your fingertips into special holding spot. I'll have a bunch of grips at the open house as well, so you can try them. Mind mapping templates and strategies, we saw those earlier. So and raised line paper. If you still like paper, there's all kinds of paper you can buy that give you tactile feedback. It can be a grids, it can be lines, whatever helps the user feel more comfortable with their note taking. So I put a link down here you can check out later. You will get a PDF of everything. And then probably tomorrow we'll send out a link thanking you for coming, send you the PDF, and then also send you the uh, the recording, and for anybody that missed, they can try to virtually attend there too. Okay, so we're going to cruise through some math here. So earlier I mentioned math has additional complexity for these readers who struggle or writers who struggle because of the notation. And so this is Equagio. Equagio is a text help product, very good company. Their algorithms for voice recognitions are very strong. Their word correction is very good. So it would be good for dyslexia, dysgraphia, visual processing, because it can pull text out. What it does is, so let me explain what you're seeing here is in this image down in the bottom 2/3, you're seeing a person who maybe they have a Google Doc open, or maybe it's even if it's a test on a Google form or something like that. Let's just use the Google ecosystem for now. And so they can highlight and then the text they're going to solve, or the formula they're going to solve, and then they they pull it into Equagio here. And then they're going to, they can solve it. They can dictate, or you see at the bottom of the screen here, you can either has a formula support, so you can have it suggest formula. If you use LaTeX, which is not very common these days unless you're doing engineering stuff, um, it does have that embedded. You can use handwriting. So let's say you're on a tablet and you want to use a smart pencil, and then you could use your handwriting and it will convert it into the right print and then the math formula. And it also has, I think what it's demonstrating here is the dictation option. Okay. And if you needed special notation, it will have it here. And so here's the button to extract the math. And then later, once you finish the math, you can put it back into push it back into the document. Okay. Again, they have great tutorials on Equasio and YouTube. So I would go there and take a look if you're interested in the product to see how it works. It's a very sophisticated tool. I really think it has tremendous potential to be helpful for people, but you really need to know how to use it because the training piece is important. Okay, so earlier I mentioned a Google form. And so here's an example of a student using Equasio again. And here's a setting menu. Maybe they're doing math, maybe it's chemistry, maybe they want the formula prediction support. And so they've turned on all of these. You can save those settings. So note again, yeah, it does have chemistry formulas built in. And so here, it's a little bit cut off, but it has the extract and insert button. So once you've, highlighted here, you click extract, it's pulled it into here. The student can type or dictate or write in, and then maybe they're looking for formula support, which it just used, and finished typing it, and then inserted it. And so it went back into the form. Okay, so all right, what else is out there? There are a lot of calculators out there. So if the student just needs some calculator support, there are graphing computer apps, math notation tools, graphing tools, equation solving tools, different manipulatives, so anything to get them, again, moving and lighting up different parts of their brain while they're engaging with the math and giving them the text-to-speech option. So here you can hear the graph. I think this one example was pulled from somebody who may have a visual disability and they can't see everything clearly. Maybe they only have 80% of their vision acuity. And so they're using this to hear the graph being described, and then they could interact with it. So those are all options. Or graphing calculators. There's also GeoBra, another online graphing calculator. It can also do 3D imaging. There are, like, maybe if you're doing more simple math and you don't want something so complicated, you can look for something more specifically like a fraction calculator. And then there's a whole various calculators for advanced math. So you can just take a look and search these terms and you'll pull them up online. All right, and this is MathPix. This one is still currently evolving. I feel like it's still in some infancy stages, but it is a federally funded, I think this was the one that's federally funded and also part of the Benetech initiative. So, but it has the the read aloud function. All right, this is Math Solver. It's a Microsoft product, and it has a math keyboard here. It's not really disability specific, but again, with AT consideration, we're looking at what is the need of the individual. Do they need a way to input math in a way that it can create the formula? If that's so, this would be a reasonable solution. If they're using a computer or device that has text-to-speech built in, it could, I think the built-in text-to-speech is getting a little better with being able to do some simple math notation. So you can try that as well. But here's just an array of different things to think about. Some of these we mentioned earlier, so these are kind of like some of the standouts and different things to think about when it comes to math support. and considering 18 and really think about the functional area of need of the user and what tool could be pulled in then to help support them. All right, so students at the college level need to be able to, do a lot of stuff. And so a big project is often assigned at some point during the quarter semester. And so the user, the student, has to be able to identify this is something big. I need to plan this out, but I don't really know how to plan it out. I don't even know what it means to write a research paper. What is it, right? And so University of Minnesota, years ago, they're the pioneers of this concept, as far as I know. And I've seen a lot of people copy them. Again, I've been in this field for a while, and I've been University of Minnesota used to be kind of like the Lone Ranger out there with this, but a lot of colleges now have either used their design and created theirs, or they have created their own, and it looks very different now. But just check them out. What it does is you just at least on theirs, and they leave this as open source. Any student can come to the University of Minnesota's website, regardless of being a student there or not, from anywhere around the world. And you can use this tool because once you plan, it helps you plan your assignment. You can just download it. Click what type of assignment you have, put in the start date, the due date, and then calculate. And it spits out all these tasks that you need to do and chunked up by time. And so then the student has to take that and then put that into their own calendar. And then they have to have the discipline to follow their calendar. So there are other layers involved with making this a success, but this is a terrific tool for helping them to plan it out. And for our local students here in San Jose, check out the one on the San Jose State website. Okay, and for now we're kind of shifting gears into like the planning, organization, executive functioning piece, like the last planner, assignment planner, but also like as far as other facets of your life, you could use organization and planning support. So let's lean on what's already here and what's just pretty much in everybody's hands already, right? We all have a phone. So we have access to a digital calendar, like whichever digital calendar it is. And every digital calendar has abilities to set alerts and reminders, embed links, invite people to them, set reminders, collaboration documents, embed them in there. So finding some system for organizing these types of things. Maybe you prefer to use a paper planner. Well, Amazon has Rocketbook, which is an organizing planner. It's a physical planner, but it has a QR code. Anytime you want to port that into your Google Drive or into your Drive or your cloud storage, you just send it off in there, and then you erase uses friction pens, and it's got these very durable plastic-like pages. And so you just wipe away the writing and then it's fresh and new. So that's another way to use a physical planner. And so you can take a look at that. I didn't write that one here yet, but it's on my other list. And take advantage of homework assistance. So you have, some of these smart devices, if I call out those keywords and say, hey, add this to my calendar tomorrow at 6 p.m., from 6 to 7 p.m., and then it will just add it. So then, the whole burden that weighs on a person's, brain and their heart and their stress, right, gets alleviated because it's already added into the calendar. Right? So we can help support our students with these types of strategies of using these devices and using them effectively. So I hope I'm giving you enough ideas to start churning and develop some vision of how you can share this with others or support your student at home and help give them ideas of what they could be doing, right? If you wanted to chat with me more, just ping me again, info@PHP, say something about assistive technology and ideas of how to use it, blah, blah, blah. And it'll come straight to me, and then we can set up a time for a call, and I'd love to talk to you about these different ideas. AT for student success, other areas of functional need. So thinking about the learner, right? We all we've been sitting here for an hour and a half almost, right? Who doesn't need to shrug their shoulders a little bit, right? Because by moving a little bit, we kind of re-engage the body, we engage the brain, we take some deep breaths, right? And so, I am a huge fan of Chapel Hill right now because they did such a fantastic job of listing a huge number of student success strategies there. Like if you wanted to learn how to annotate, Chapel Hill's got that. If you want to know how to pair movement and learning and why it's so important to pair the two together and to kind of every 20 minutes, give yourself that break. Maybe use the Pomodoro method, right? And this is the science behind why we do it and why we encourage people to do it. It's like, this is how we're physiologically wired to be. So check out some of these best practices that are out there. I'm a huge fan of, like, if you're going to take a break, take the right kind of break. Right? If you're going to sit down and learn, make sure you're learning. If you're not, you might as well be on break. Right? So, and then figure out how do I get my body ready for my learning, right? And there's a lot to kind of check out there. And then so different options and strategies for using timers. Pairing the timers with sensory breaks. If you can gamify that somehow, I think that's a great idea, right? Maybe the person also loves to work out. So like, okay, let's do a personal challenge. Let's see how many pull-ups, buy a $20 chin-up bar, right? Let's see how many chin-ups you can do. Or maybe the hand squeezing things. I bought my sons this grip strength tester. I had no idea it was going to really get them to use, like, because they work out, and it supercharged them in other aspects of their willingness to look at their personal fitness and motivate them. Like, oh, really? Just they get data on how strong their grip was, right? And actually, they have to exert a lot of energy to squeeze that thing. So it was really, different things, right? You tap into a person's strengths and think about what they like to do and what motivates them and how can they pull those strengths into creating success strategies for the learner, right? Because we always want it to be positive, right? Tap into their strengths. Every learner's got a lot of strengths, you know. So, screen trackers, these work for some. If it works for a certain user, I think it's for sure for people who have attention concerns. If they can muster the discipline to follow through on the data that comes from screen trackers, so sometimes they'll lock you out of a certain screen for a certain amount of time so that you can focus on certain things, or it'll give you feedback of how much time you've been spending on something. And so like, okay, that might be too much. And that might be why I didn't finish this other thing, right? So screen trackers can be useful for giving that data back to the person. And then, use social groups to encourage new habits. So if your learner is willing to create, like, hey, personal challenges, all these fitness challenges, right? So expand that concept to the whole idea of like learning challenges, but you can give it a special name. Maybe don't call it learning challenge, but like, let's do a personal challenge. Let's say who can, you know, you know, follow through with these Pomodoro breaks for 5 days in a row, right? And it's honor system, obviously, but yeah, but get a whole group like, hey, who's willing to try it with me? And then somehow if I know my friend, who lives a mile away is doing the same thing, or maybe in the dorms, 2 halls down, I kind of feel encouraged about that. I feel like, I'm not doing a weird thing. I'm doing it with my friend and we're trying something new together. Right? So positive peer pressure, see if you can harness that. All right. this is the last little bit of AT stuff, and we all know that going to college can be stressful, right? There's so much, so many complexities, we can't even name them all. And so figuring out to find balance, how to center oneself, how to watch and care for your mental health, personal wellness, right? These are all um, different facets of monitoring your mental health in beneficial ways. So it's just there for you to reference and take a look at. And I am not a therapist, so I'm not going to preach any one of these. All I know is these are best practices. I do a lot of these personally, so I'm a big fan of many of them. But I think everybody's got to find what works for them. What works for a lot of people doesn't work for me. So I've had a long journey to figure out what works for me and to kind of settle in with that. But there are also supports at the college. So it might be a good idea to help your student to know where these are. Maybe already put them. So how it ties into the AT is like it can be put on their device, right? And have a strategy for watching out for their mental health. And so on their phone, they already have it plugged in the crisis text line. I love that they have a texting version, right? And it's completely confidential. So this is right up you know, um, their generation's communication style. But remind them that there are also other people, and that let them know that anything they say at the health clinic is a private record, it's confidential. So they should go to somebody when they feel worried. And if they don't know how to put in words, you can tell them that it's okay to say, I don't know why I'm here. I have something that's worrying me, but I don't know how to say it, right? And then let the students know that the adults that they say this to will help them to be able to ask the right questions to help them figure things out at least, right? Or give them, refer them. So anyways, I feel like sometimes I hear from students that like, I didn't ask for help because I didn't know what to say. You don't have to know what to say. Just say like, I'm confused, or I don't know where to go. And that's enough, right? I feel like that could be really reassuring to students. All right. Okay. So refocusing back on the core of finding AT, how do we know from this whole array we just went through, what is the right one for you, right? So there's a whole set of questions you could ask yourselves, right? And again, overarching, we're focusing on the needs of the student, right? What are the needs of the student? What's the functional area that they're having difficulty? Oh, I'm having trouble reading. I'm having trouble writing. I'm having trouble with note taking. I'm getting kind of disorganized and lost. And then I find I haven't been listening. And then I feel like I'm getting more behind, right? And so these are functional areas that we can identify. And then we can ask, what do you currently use, right? What's the platform? What computing platform? Oh, I like to take notes on my tablet, but I really like to do word processing on the computer, right? I think that's pretty common for students, especially college students these days. Um, how would they describe their learning disability? Even if they don't reference it as a learning disability, we can say your challenges in learning, right? It's okay. But know that when you talk to the college center, they will need to hear you disclose your disability in very specific terms and with detail. And how do you know it's a disability? So that whole disclosure piece, the student has to start to feel comfortable with saying the right words that help them to advocate for what they need from the right people. Right? Obviously, you don't have to blast it out to everyone. They have the right to privacy from most people, but when they're trying to access support and services, they need to be able to disclose to the right people to get those. Okay. So know what platforms, they use, what strategies, high tech have they used in the past? They currently use, what is working for them? What do they think is helpful? And looking forward, what problems do you think might occur that you would want to use for AT? So these are just some starting questions. It's not a comprehensive list. In fact, I have about like 30 30 questions on a comprehensive list that I'm going to send you tomorrow. So that is coming. And in fact, it's called How to Talk to the Student Disability Office. So take a look at that. And oh, okay. Before Mary Diane's going to wrap us up, I just quickly wanted to mention, just really hone in on the fact that we're finding the tool to address the functional need. So again, earlier we said the reading difficulty, and then go back to that slide that I mentioned early on in our presentation that had the reading, writing, and math tools, right? That's a slide like to help you hone in on what types of tools. And then I'm going to send you different lists of tools, one list on literacy tools, one on math tools, one on study strategies, note taking. And then if you need anything else, I will have a discussion with you. So, okay. But Mary Diane's going to wrap us up with some closing thoughts.
Yes. So for our closing thoughts on AT, will not make a disability go away, may not be the solution, does not compensate for poor instruction, addresses a functional area of need, is the device and the services. Implementation includes using good strategies and supportive habits. In college, requires disclosure of disability to ODS, is
Yeah,
part of,
Office of the Disability Services.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Diana, is part of ensuring a student has access to learning. And AT tools, LD, dyslexia, ADHD, text to speech, digital books, articles, speech to text, organization and study tools, note taking, visual tracking solutions, font size, AT tools evolving. And we have some resources on the next slide. And as Diana mentioned earlier, more resources will be sent to you.
Yep.